Hi, Christos Paloukas here, performance engineer at Pressidium Managed WordPress Hosting. Here today with my buddy, Bud Kraus. Bud Kraus has been in the WordPress community since I finished high school. What is that, like 2008, 2009, Bud?
Something like that, yeah. It's about when
And
I
he's here
finished.
today to tell us about himself. So go ahead, continue my introduction.
Well, Christos, thank you for the opportunity to
Thank you.
say hi to you and to your audience. And you want to know what I do? Is that right?
Yeah, tell us about what you do.
Well, that's what my wife wants to know. Anyway, so besides having a good time, I have been involved in the WordPress world and WordPress itself since 2009, so it's quite a while. Currently, I am a content creative, so I write articles for web hosting companies. I also create videos, and I have my podcast called Seriously Bud, which I launched about a year ago, where each week I have an unexpected conversation with someone from the WordPress community. It's not a tech talk, it's a talk about people's lives, what they do. And you were recently interviewed on my show and will be
I was
dropped.
there.
Yes, you were, and it was fun. And your episode will be dropped in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's fine. Can't wait.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your background, or do you want to go straight into questions?
Why not?
It's up to
So,
you.
sure. So I was not born into the web because I was born 20 years too early. That wasn't my fault.
Fair enough.
And but once the internet popped up in the mid 1990s, I said I want to do that. And so I totally changed careers. And I went into whatever that was. And basically that was making websites, learning HTML, CSS, and so on. And then eventually I realized, oh, I'm no designer. And I'm a teacher, not a designer. So I started teaching at Pratt Institute in New York City and FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology, and just about everywhere I could teach. And at first it was code, and then it morphed into WordPress. And as far as the WordPress community goes, it was really gradual. I didn't start out saying, boy, I really want to know like 1 million people in the WordPress world. No, I didn't. No, it was very gradual. I'm in New York City, so I started meeting people here at meetups and stuff like that. And then knowing that there was this thing called WordCamp New York, and then beyond that, US and Europe and all over the place. And it just like got out of control. So, and I'm glad it did, because I always say how grateful and fortunate I am to be a part of this amazing community. Really.
Awesome. You must be good at something. You must be good at teaching. You must, I don't know, maybe your students liked you, they didn't like you.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's what they say. They say I was good at teaching it. Let's just say this. I loved teaching. I still do, but not very much. It was so much fun to empower people with skills that they needed in their careers, and especially in the early days when I was teaching a lot of graphic designers, and they were converting to the web, and they would just fight me with everything because the web is not printed media. So I had to transform all these people in their thinking, because the media was so different than a piece of paper. And when I would come home, my wife would say, well, how did things go today? And I'd say, well, it was good. And she says, why was it good? Well, because they laughed at all the jokes. So my measurement of how good the class was whether or not they got all the jokes. If they didn't get the jokes, it wasn't a very good class.
That's fair
So,
enough.
and the cool thing about teaching too, is once you got people, and teaching is leadership, and once you got people believing in what you're talking about, you could talk about anything. They would just, now I generally didn't, but every once in a while I'd wander off into something and it didn't matter. They were paying attention, so it was really cool. So, that was a great time in my life. I'm so glad I did all that.
You are in a bit of a position of power in front of your students. Did you ever get into maybe starting a cult using those skills?
No, I'm not that powerful. I never, no, but it was fun. And, the fun thing too, is that even after all these years, I'm still in touch with a whole lot of students, which is amazing. Some of them for 25 years, that, I would, and they would say to me, so this is this goes back to like 2000, 2001.
Yeah.
And I would say, and there were a lot of really good designers, and I'd say and I would, talk to them now and say, why was I teaching this? And they said, because you were 6 months ahead of everybody else, and that was
Wow,
kind of true, So
wow, that's
anyway,
great. That's probably the best feedback anyone could ever give you.
yeah, I mean, because
Um,
it was such an honor to teach people from you name the media company, and I taught them. So it was fun. It was an honor, really. You know.
yeah, that's cool. I
Yeah.
still remember my high school electronics teacher, that the computer stuff too, and some like networking stuff where we first got into Cisco. Richard Nichols. He recently retired like
Mhm.
months ago. We still talk on LinkedIn sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, I guess the mark of a good teacher to me is when they remember you from 25 years ago. Because I do. I remember college professors, and that goes way back. And what an impact they had on me. And you realize you could have a huge impact on people's careers, lives. Now I don't like, think about that, but you can. So,
No, it happens. It happens. I don't know. I may have inherited traits from that particular person without even
yeah.
knowing it.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I think what makes you a good teacher, because I certainly didn't have any training in it, is that I always look at it as, well, I sat in classrooms for like 20, 25 years. After a while, you get to know like who is a good teacher and who stinks, and I
Mhm.
just picked up from that what would be a good teacher. And I would have, no matter what I did in my life, I was going to end up teaching. There was just no way that wasn't going to happen, because I was just kind of, look, teaching, and especially when you talk about tech, it's really
Mhm.
interesting. It's sort of like, something's really hot and you teach them, and then everybody learns that, and then they move on to something else. It's sort of like the cattle, and they eat up all the grass, and so they move on to something else.
Yeah, okay,
So,
great analogy.
yeah, and if you want to stay current as a teacher, you have to move on. You just can't say, I'm going to teach HTML and CSS forever. Not really,
Yeah,
So,
IT grows, you
yeah.
have to grow with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to teach applications whatsoever. I always wanted just to teach code. And then it turned out like, well, you can, but the audience is getting smaller and smaller. And today it doesn't really even exist, because with AI, you can just, like me, just teach yourself. So,
Yeah, it's a tool. We have to be careful how we use it, but it's a tool.
oh, yeah. Well, yeah. And knowledge of any kind is good. There's no such thing as like,
Mhm.
bad. I mean, it's all good. And what I like, because of my foundation, is that I can keep learning new things. I have a really strong foundation to keep building and building and building new different things. And so, when you teach, you have to know the subject really well. I mean,
Mhm.
I can't go, because I'm visually impaired, I can't go into a class and like wing it. I have to know
Yeah.
exactly what I'm going to do. And I think students benefited from that too, because my courses were very structured. We started in the
It's good.
beginning and we ended up at a certain place, and I took them on the journey, and I just each class would build and make it tougher and tougher, or build on what they just learned. It was fun. I just really, those were the fun times. Not like today isn't fun, but today is more fun, actually. So I'm
Yeah.
only in it.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
No, I'm gonna take that as an opportunity. I did have a different first question for you, but since it's like super relative, I'm going to go ahead and ask the first question that has to do with any memorable experiences that you can like share from your teaching time, whether it be remote teaching, WordPress, like what really stuck, because you're really passionate about it. I can tell you keep
Wow.
talking
Yeah. Oh,
about it, and
yeah.
it's like,
Well, that's what they always said, which is true, because I just didn't feel like, going into class and boring myself. That's what I would tell the students. If you think I'm here to bore myself, go find somebody else, because I'm here to have a good time. I'm not going to bore myself. And I don't think I bored a lot of them, but let's see, teaching. Well, yeah. I'll give you from the very early days. Okay. Well, I applied, and this wasn't in a classroom, but I applied to speak at Pratt Institute. I heard, and they're like a big design, well, they're a big school in New York City. And, I had heard of them, and I saw an email that they wanted teachers, and I had just taught a like one of class to Goldman Sachs, which is like, teaching them Mount Olympus, okay, or whatever you got over there. Or so, and so I I followed up with this email. I went for my interview, and the person who interviewed me, after she hired me, and I said, I'm visually impaired.
Hmm.
And she said to me the greatest thing that I think anybody's ever said about this, which is, and this is so, and I'll tell you, and she says, well, I don't care that you're visually impaired. What the hell do I care? She said, can you do the job? And I said, well, yeah, I can teach. I can do this. And she says, well, what the heck do I care? I thought that was the best answer you could possibly give me, because for the first time, I realized if you can do the job, really, what difference does it make?
Exactly.
Now, this woman was really she got to be my boss. She was like the executive director or whatever of this program. And she was very like all business, no bullshit, no nothing, whenever I'd see her, it's like, all right, kid, give me you got 2 minutes, I'm busy here. So, but now she's like she's a friend of mine on Facebook, and she's retired, and we've had opportunities to know each other more personally.
Okay.
And she's like, oh, she's great, and I have told her this story because she didn't know until years later my reaction to her telling me, what do I care, and this is like such a typical New York kind of, what I don't care if you can't see, just as long as you can teach. And that gave me such confidence, and it was really a very pivotal moment in my life. It really was. So that's one of the absolute things that I will always remember and be grateful for. Yeah. Because that's the reaction that you should have. What do I
That's
care?
great. You should,
So,
regardless of someone's, I don't know how well they can see or how they look, or I don't know
Yeah,
whether their
right.
gender is male, female, or other.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Some people find it like offensive. So this might be a touchy topic, but one of my automatic responses to people that when they say, I don't know, I'm this or I'm that, or I'm oriented in this way, my instinctual response is, I don't care. Like, I
Yeah,
really
me
don't care.
too. I don't care.
It comes off kind of weird when you say it in that sense, but like what I
Yeah.
try to say is, okay, I look past that because it's not really important. Get
No,
it?
I
It's not
totally
important
agree.
to
I
me
mean,
for whatever we're trying to do. It's important for you for sure.
I think the fact that I had that conversation a long time ago has always stayed with me in a much bigger sense than just me, but, and the job and all that, but just accepting people for
Yeah.
who and what they, and not as just people, and not just based on race, color, gender, whatever. Okay, I could care less. It means nothing to me. So, and it should mean nothing to anybody, really. Like, who cares?
I know.
But it obviously does, to a lot of people, matter. These things like sexuality and preference and whatever. I don't even know this stuff. I don't care because it's just so irrelevant to me. So
I know it's touchy. I don't even know like what the right words to use instead of I don't care. Like
I don't care.
I find myself in like the middle of multiple of these weird, like odd, maybe not weird, but alternative communities. And I never really, I just want you to look at me in the face and be like, hi, Christos.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean I won't be curious. I'm always that. And I'm always going to ask you questions like why this or what that or.
Oh, that's different. Yeah.
Right. But I don't judge you based on, oh, you're Jewish, so you must be like this, and yes, you probably are like this with the hands and the whatever. There are, things, but so what? At the end of the day, who cares?
Yeah, we're all humans.
So yes, we are going to group people together. There is no question about that. But when you're talking to an individual, that stuff doesn't really matter anymore.
Yeah.
It's like who they are, what's in their heart, what's in their soul, what's their kind of person. That's what I'm looking for, So
I think that's what you're looking for in your new project too, right? So you started up a podcast.
Yeah.
You mentioned it in the introduction. I was a guest on that podcast. The podcast is called Seriously Bud, with a question mark.
I was just gonna say, seriously, Bud?
Exactly.
Right.
And I want information. I want you to tell me how this started, the idea that came into your head that said, I have to make a podcast too. I can do this. What's the inspiration behind it? And what are your general goals?
Well, I'll answer how it started. And it didn't start from, I was sitting down thinking, like, what kind of a podcast could I do? That's not where it started. Because that's the last thing I was ever going to do. Go ask Bob Dunn. I just told him 1,000 times I would never do a podcast. But I was leaving WordCamp US 2023 and in Washington, and I was getting into an Uber, and this thing hit me like a bolt of lightning. I swear, I said, boy, I wish I could spend more time with so-and-so, just fill in the blank. Because it's like, you go to these word camps, it's like speed dating. You're just like you're like a pinball, bouncing around people. And you never really sit down and like talk to them, I mean, just a little bit like, so what do you do again? And it's like, you know what I mean? These like little snippets of conversation. I wanted to have a real conversation, like in the old fashioned days where you could sit down and say, so where were you born and what's your, what's your life like? And, and keep the WordPress stuff down to a real bare minimum, because there are plenty of other podcasts that are out there that people talk about what they do in WordPress. I just wanted to get after life stories because I think that like human stories are the best stories. And so I was going for that. And at first I actually debated about 2 or 3 months. Should I do this? Should I not do this? I have enough skills maybe to do it, and then I started doing it. And so like first episode was launched at the end of February of last year with Marcus Brunette, who's a very good friend of mine.
He's great.
And it just grew, and it's not explosive growth, but it's getting more and more listeners all the time. And I've interviewed now I've published 52 people. I have enough people in the pipeline to last a lifetime. I'm serious. There's so many people now. I know more people now because of the podcast.
That's good.
And which is great. And I mean, it's just so much fun. Now, what's really cool is that, it does come out every Friday. There's a new episode. You can go to seriouslybud.com to sign up for my new my newsletter, my ebook, the podcast, the whole thing. Or you can get it wherever you get podcasts. And what's really kind of cool too about podcasts, which I didn't realize, is that they have a long shelf life. So even something that I published 6 months ago, people might still be listening to today.
Oh, okay,
I did not expect, it's very unexpected. I did not know that they have a shelf life. And separate apart from all that, which is I got sponsors. So when I first came up with the idea, I said, I don't care if I get sponsors. I don't even care if anybody listens to this. I just want to have the conversation. So it started with that. And then I got this goofy music with the kazoo and all that, and my daughter introducing me. And so the whole concept of the show, how it sounded, the whole was really born in a second. I mean, I did not ever, spend sleepless nights wondering, when am I going to do this? Or it just came as one piece. And then I got in touch with my friend who's a graphic designer, and she did all the artwork for it. And she came up with the name Seriously Bud, because I had this stupid name called In Conversation With, which is so boring. Yep. And she came up with, no, here's what it's called. And that was it. So, and what's really kind of cool is that the word WordPress or WP is not in the name. Yeah. So yeah, I like that a lot. So I can do lots of things maybe down the road, who knows, with the brand. It's just, it's been a very interesting experience. And also to get people to share their life story on the show. And of course, give them an opportunity to get out there in the WordPress world, but maybe even more important, that people get to know you, Christos, when your episode comes out, that people learn more about you that they didn't know. I'm hearing little stories like, oh, I didn't know this about so-and-so, or I didn't know that they went to this college, and that's really cool stuff, So it's sort of like a service, but when you're having this much fun, what is there to complain? One last thing too that's kind of cool about the podcast is that I'm all of like one piece now. That is, my podcast sponsors, clients I work for, they're sort of all the same group, which is so fantastic. It was one last thing about that, which is at about 2019, 20, I started meeting a lot of people in the WordPress world and staying in touch with them and stuff. And I thought, like, gee, I wish I could do something with these people. I mean, I wish I could sell something to them. I wish I could do something to make money from all these people that I know. So, and I was like a fledgling. At that point, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I'd reached a certain point. I could just retire, I guess, and stop working. But, I just said, no, I want to do something with them. And so this whole thing about now doing something with them, writing videos, podcasting, content creative, as I call myself,
Yes.
it all came together. So it's really cool. Like I say, I'm really lucky, especially at this old age, to be doing this. And meeting people like half my age who are twice as smart, who help me learn like really new cool stuff. I as long as people in the WordPress world will let me go to their WordPress WordCamps and stuff like that, I'll probably keep coming. So
Great.
there.
Yeah, WordPress keeping you going.
Too
is,
bad.
Really cute, like from a community perspective.
Yeah, well, everybody comes up to me at these WordCamps. The first thing after they say they know my name or whatever, the next question is, how old are you? And I say, like, what, is there an age restriction requirement? Age is getting to be like, a thing, right? In my, like, well, why are you asking? Like, this is not, so I try not to tell them until they beg me, or I'll ask them.
I personally avoided the question, but you're like basically asking me to ask you, but I won't. I'll respect it.
No. Well, it's funny. I had a podcast with Anna Mika Bovalet yesterday, and she guessed my age so wrong. She had me so much older than I am.
Oh, no.
And I just said, oh, everybody guesses lower and you guessed higher. So whatever. Okay.
I don't think it matters.
But I could be a lot of people's, father, obviously, and I starting to be a lot of people's grandfather. So, yeah, as long as I'm, able to, I'm going to keep going. And, the other cool thing too.
Keep going, keep doing it.
Is that people my age and a little younger too, but in my sort of generation, they're all saying the same thing. And I'm not going to name names, but people who are like, let's say in their 60s or 70s, whatever, or late 50s, they say things like, well, I'm not going to retire. I want to keep doing this because I love doing this. That's that's one of the vibrant aspects of the WordPress community is people like to be in the WordPress community.
Yeah.
Because they meet like-minded folks and they get nourishment from the WordPress community of one kind or another. It's amazing the friendships that have developed from this thing. Birgit Paloukas, I quote all these people. She says, and she has a really good expression for this. She says, well, we came for the software, but we stayed for the community. Yeah. I mean, that's really, that's true. I say it like, well, the software's pretty good, but the community is so much better. So
yeah, totally makes sense. I have to agree with you 100%. My first WordCamp was only a few years ago. I think in 2022 in Athens, and I wasn't really expecting what I found. I thought it would be more like IT oriented, boring per se, boring. But no, and I still do keep in touch with a lot of people from WordCamps.
Did you go up to a lot of people to introduce yourself? Did they come up to you and say hi? How did that happen for you?
I'll tell you. So the first one was a small one. It was like a regional one, WordCamp Athens. I was kind of a guest there, a guest in the sense that I just existed and maybe talked to a couple locals because it was in Athens and it wasn't a big deal. But the big one, when WordCamp Europe came to Athens the next year, I found myself on both ends. I couldn't help myself. Like I couldn't stop talking and people would come up to me.
Yeah.
Even though I was a nobody.
There's no such thing as a nobody. See, I think what the cool thing about the whole thing is when you go to these WordCamps, now one thing I hate is, one thing I have to make a conscious effort of is to meet new people. Because it's very easy just to spend time with people I know. Fine. but I want to sit at a table where I don't know anybody or nobody's ever heard of. That's fine. I like that because that's the thing. I mean, that's how I started, which is like when I would go to WordCamp New York in 2011. I didn't know a soul, but I'd sit down and start saying, so what do you do with WordPress? You know, it's pretty easy to break the ice. You start with that question.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you know, they're your best friend for life, you know? So
That's awesome.
yeah, I don't want to just hang with the people that I know. I want to, you know, I want to meet new people. I think it's really important for, in order for the community to continue to thrive, is that the old folks like me go out and meet new people. So, or anybody that's like, you know, been around forever. It's easy just to stick with your friends. Go out and meet new people.
Yeah.
It's easy to do. Yeah.
That makes sense. Plus, it keeps everything a little more diverse, more interesting. Again, less boring.
Yeah. I don't, you know, it's great to hang around with the people I know, but I'm in touch with them all the time. So I always feel like I'm at WordCamp every day. I do. It's really kind of funny with Slack and LinkedIn and Facebook and this one and that. I feel every day that I'm at WordCamp. So when I'm at WordCamp, it's a good time to meet some new people.
Great.
Yeah,
I'm telling you now, I'm quoting that. I'm going to use that for like the Twitter post for this video.
Okay, good, because
Definitely quoting that.
It is so true. I realized this about a couple of months ago. You're like at WordCamp every day. It's true.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We're running a little low on time. We still have a bit of it though.
Okay.
Heading into the last question, which is kind of inspired by you and your podcast. So you mentioned Marcus before, right? Marcus Burnett from the WP World. He was on my podcast too, a couple episodes back. And you used Marcus to interview you.
I did.
Seriously, Bud, in a relatively recent episode.
Yeah.
So, and you also went through with like this ebook project that I noticed on your website where you questions you wish you would have asked certain people, and then you reached out and asked them, and you know, you put the ebook all together. So the last question is the twist question. What's the question that you didn't ask me that you would have wanted to ask?
Geez.
All inclusive.
That's not fair. And I say it's not fair because I don't know. I'd have to go back and listen to your episode again. But that's a good question, but it's just not a fair question. It's definitely a good question. I don't know. I'd have to go back. The problem and the reason why is because I interview so many people now, I'm just starting to forget like all the little details. I will know when I edit your episode, I'll say, oh, I should have asked a question. But sometimes I feel there aren't any questions. That, you know, I said, well, actually, it's hard for me to answer that question. It's my wife who says to me, you should have asked whatever. Because I'm too close to the subject to realize. Sometimes, though, I'm becoming more conscious now of the question I should have asked, you know. So, by the way, as long as you're saying this, you can go to my website, seriouslybud.com, and there's a link to get the ebook. Yeah. And what's kind of cool about this, too, I love this part about the book, is that so there are 5 people in there, you know, that I reached out to and said, hey, I forgot to ask this question. Yeah. But each one of those people got their own personalized WAPU. So, for example, Ray Morey, okay, she gets a WAPU. She got a WAPU with being a journalist.
Mm-hmm. That's cute.
Or Aaron Campbell loves speedy things, fast. So I think he's on a motorcycle or something. The WAPU's on a motorcycle, whatever. So we accessorized all these 5 WAPUs and gave him a character that's tied to the person. So I love that. And of course, my graphic designer thought of that because I have the creative brain of an insurance agent, meaning I used to be in the insurance business, so I know what I'm talking about.
It's cool. Everyone does their own thing. Like you reach out to someone for their particular skills. They have to be better at it than you. If they weren't, you wouldn't use them.
If there's anything I'm good at is knowing that I'm not good at everything or most things, and that I have plenty of resources, people, connections, ties to say, hey, can you help me with this? Or I need this, or who should I talk to about that? You know?
Yeah.
Now, at my age, I should have a huge network of people like that. But, you know, it's just the way it is. So like I'm lucky, you know. So yeah, so that book,
Yeah, go ahead.
it was just launched, but it's EPUB book on seriouslybud.com. Please don't say that again.
Oh no,
I'm just
please.
anyway.
Okay, cool. I haven't filled out the form to get the book. I have to do that and check out the book myself. I'm
Yeah,
curious.
yeah, yeah. Please do,
Uh,
and you'll
go
also
ahead.
be automatically, and it says you're going to be subscribed to my newsletter, but I think you already are
Yeah,
subscribed to
me
my
too. I do get the
Okay,
updates.
okay.
Well, cool. Do you want to add anything else? You want to tell other people anything else?
I'm moving in a couple of
Oh,
months. I'm selling my home. I've lived here for about 38 years or 37. We're moving about an hour south of where we are. We're uh, 12 miles directly west of Times Square. So if you draw a line about an hour south of here, we're moving to where my two children are, my two grandsons are, my rest of my family is, everybody's down there. So we're moving because my wife wants to do this. But and I want to stay married, so I'm coming with her. And the truth of the matter is, what I do, I could do on Mars. It doesn't really matter
yeah, yeah,
where
yeah.
they.
Plus, getting out
So,
of the city, I don't know. It was probably one of the best things I've ever done personally too. Like living in the center of Athens was just something I wasn't
yeah,
that
well,
great into. But I can't really go to a forest, you know, in the middle of nowhere. And now I'm in a suburb outside of Athens, and it's literally 2 kilometers away, but maybe 30, 45 minutes by car with traffic.
oh, that's yeah. See, and we're close enough to New York so that you could get there pretty fast. So now I'm going to be a little further away, but I don't go to New York all that much anymore. But the great thing about being here is, of course, the Broadway shows, the stores, the
You know.
whatever, the restaurants, they're all there. They're not going anywhere. So, we'll still get to them.
All right, cool. Let's tell everyone where they can find you. They could definitely find you at seriouslybud.com, where you got the
Yes, they
podcast
can.
going.
And if you ever want to hire me to write something for your service, whether it's a web hosting company, a theme shop, a plugin developer, that's joyofwp.com. That's my other
Okay.
site, joyofwp. And check that out because it's fun and funny. I don't like to make
Yeah.
websites that are serious because there's too much serious in this world as it is.
Seriously, bud.
Yes. Seriously, Christos. Okay.
I'll include that link in the show notes too. I'll add any I don't know, social media accounts you might want to. And yeah, that's all. That's a wrap. There's Bud. There's Bud behind Seriously Bud. Been in the
Yep.
community since 2009. That's when I finished high school.
It's
And
what?
that's when I finished high school, class of '09.
Yeah. And me too.
And he's done a lot. He's done a lot. He's taught a lot of people. He's been a speaker too. I didn't mention that for WordCamps. But since we're low on time, this is where we say bye-bye, everyone. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.